Now, how about the mathematics behind this idea? Well, you may not understand all the symbols, but just to kind of see what it looks like. We wrote down equations, physicists wrote down equations way back 60s and 70s that were wonderfully accurate at describing the forces of nature, the non-gravitational forces, the electromagnetic force, the weak and strong nuclear forces. We've also written down equations that describe the particles of matter in which those forces act, like electrons and neutrinos and quarks. The puzzling thing is this. Those equations have built in a fantastic amount of symmetry. What I mean by symmetry is, from everyday life, if you have a snowflake, if you rotate that snowflake in the right way, it looks the same even though you've rotated it, you've transformed it. It has symmetry. If you take a sphere, that's even more symmetric. As you rotate a sphere, regardless of what angle you rotate it through, it looks the same. Similarly, the basic equations had a built-in symmetry much like that. If you mixed up the pieces of the equations, somehow it all coalesced that the overall mathematical form stayed the same. The problem was, if you wanted to give mass to the matter particles, or even some of the force-carrying particles, we knew how to do that mathematically, but the new mathematical term looks like this. It has a psi bar and a psi in it. That term, if you brought that into the equations, ruined the symmetry. Symmetry was shattered, completely went away, and without the symmetry, the equations were actually inconsistent. They didn't work any longer. So the mathematical puzzle was to try to give mass to the particles, but not destroy the symmetry. The idea of Higgs and various others was to introduce a new term, one that didn't quite look like a mass term at first sight, one that was completely symmetric like the others. When you brought this new term into the equations maintained their beautiful symmetry. But notice that if that first factor in front of psi bar psi, we call it phi, that symbol sitting in front, if that is rewritten as, say, m plus h, where m is just a number, then when you multiply that through, look what happens. The m multiplies the psi bar and the psi. It looks like a mass term. And that m is the constant value of the field that's permeating space. So that permeating field in this mathematical guise gives rise to the mass of particles. That's how the mathematical form of this idea works.